Well, look here, ladies and gentlemen, we've got ourselves another Civil War era game. Today, we will review Grand Tactician Civil War, an American Civil War game made by a European. Now, where have I seen this before? Yes, well, I guess it takes a third-party perspective to make some of the best Civil War games out there. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, Ultimate General, awesome game, Ironclad American Civil War, great game, all those games are great. Anyway, so let's start from the beginning. The main menu, to be exact, is the beginning. So, upon starting up Grand Tactician, you're met with a classic Civil War era music and moving video. Okay. Though this is a review and not a tutorial, I would like to recommend a few things before you start your game. First, you're going to want to check out some of the tutorials that come with the game right at the game menu. This game is actually quite vast and will be a lot to take in all at once. Also, check out the options for things like European interventions and order delays. If you're looking for a more Total War type experience, you might want to uncheck some or all of these. If you prefer the more classic experience of sending runners or things like the Europeans intervening, if you're playing the Union and you're being too aggressive or not clamping down on slavery, things like that, you'll want to check some of those boxes. Even feuds are in there. It's really cool, actually. Next, the player goes on to start the campaign. Now, of course, you can choose from Union or Confederacy. That is the two sides of the war, after all. The Union is the side that I recommend for first-time players due to their better financial and industrial capabilities. Not to mention their massively better navy. You can change difficulty depending on how tough you like it. Very easy tends to leave your enemy on the defensive most of the game, letting you carefully plan your invasions, while hard will have them constantly probing your borders for undefended areas. Now, before you start, you could select different bonuses, up to 3 to be exact, that will change how your game is played. Oh, and I should mention, there are plenty of historical battles too, including Pea Ridge, a battle that is woefully underrepresented in Civil War history. More on combat later, though. There are 2 layers to the game, a grand map layer and the battlefield layer. While you will find yourself spending most of your time in battles, they last a very long time after all, you will be doing most of your planning at the grand level. This is where I feel the game is most dynamic. You are playing the President of the United States or the President of the CSA, which means you have little direct control over your economy. Sure, you can influence economic growth via subsidies, and you should, by the way, but much of the grand map runs on autopilot. Weapon production, goods factories, farms, all of those are built automatically by citizens of your country, depending on the need of the surrounding countryside. Is your nation short on iron? Some entrepreneurial rich man is going to get right on it and build a factory to meet the demand. Feeling the sting of terrible weapons with poor range? Well, invest in industrialization policies so your factories can grow and put out better armaments. This hands-off approach may chafe some players. God knows I love micromanaging in other strategy games such as Hearts of Iron 4 or Supreme Ruler. But it is an interesting approach trying to guide your nation's growth through political level subsidizing rather than dictatorial control of everything. For instance, if you play Hearts of Iron 4, you can build factories, you can build units, you can build the equipment that those units use. However, in this game, it's not quite so easy. While you can build units, you cannot just build the weapons they need to be equipped. Those come over time, depending on how robust your economy is. Now, before we jump into the world of battles, I would like to compliment Grand Tactician's art style. At a distant zoom level, the map of the United States, or not so United States during this time, switches to a more classical hand-drawn look, showing little in the way of detail, but much in the way of historical feels. That's feels with a Z, by the way. As you zoom in, the map becomes 3D and is packed full of cities, roads, industries, and more. Again, this is not a tutorial, but I can't stress enough how important supplies and choke points are in this game. Sure, you can run your army around enemy lines through the middle of a dense forest, and you can watch your army fall apart as it's mired down in the middle of the wilderness with no line of supply. You will find yourself building supply depots and repairing infrastructure more than actually fighting. And to be honest, I love every minute of that. An army marches on its stomach, and unlike the aforementioned strategy games, that old adage rings very true in this game. If you run off by yourself, you will starve and your people will be disorganized and useless in a fight. Now, if you have a particularly huge army, local entrepreneurs will even build farms and other supply buildings to help meet its massive demands if it sticks around a specific supply depot long enough. Okay, so that's all well and good, you say, but let's get to the killing. Okay, you sadomasochists, let's get to the killing indeed. So, you've lined up your country and prepared it for war. Time to invade, or be invaded, depending on which difficulty or which side you're playing. Your first moments in the battle map, you're met with the tutorial book, which helps a lot early on, by the way, and report of the enemy's situation. Much like the grand map, this map also has a historical look at far zooms. For my review, I turned off the fog of war so that you could see it all, but with those on, you will see only what your army sees, and with order delays turned on, your men will only follow your orders once the runner reaches them and relays those orders. Like other strategy games, flanking is key. Like in the actual Civil War, you'll be constantly trying to outmaneuver your opponent, similar to the way that Grant constantly outmaneuvered Lee towards the end of the war. Okay, your forces are split into three groups: cavalry, with their high speed and effective charges into retreating enemies; infantry, which form the backbone of your army and can withstand an immense amount of punishment before breaking; and artillery, which damages the morale of the enemy and absolutely dominates in close range with canister fire. Though I would say it's not quite as deadly as canister fire in Ultimate General, for instance. It is very morale damaging, but not as manpower damaging as that game. Okay, so the map is split up into objectives. If you have the option enabled, these objectives constantly give points to their owner, forcing the person with less points to act rather than to sit there and wait for the enemy. For instance, if you have more overall victory points and they're stacking up over time, the enemy will have no choice but to either attack you or exit the battlefield because they will not be able to win by hiding. Some maps have many objectives and some maps just have one. If there is one place the reviews complain about the most, it's probably the battle map. As you can see, the sprites are pretty low quality, less even than Ultimate General, which is saying something. Those are not exactly high quality sprites in that game. However, on the developer's roadmap are improvements in graphics, and really, who buys a strategy game for incredible graphics? And I think in this case, because those improvements to graphics are said to be coming, I wouldn't really knock the game for that particular aspect. And in fact, if you're watching this review a few weeks later than I'm posting it, chances are that improvement has been put in because it is on their upcoming changes to the game. Okay, now one thing I absolutely love about the battles is the sound of musket fire. It is so beautiful and full. In fact, major battles, where you have tens of thousands of men firing all at once, will have your audio senses absolutely tingling with overload at the sheer number of muskets firing all at once. Okay, that is all well and good. Those are all positive things, but what are the downsides of Grand Tactician Civil War? Well, clearly it's a bit rough around the edges. Units stopping mid-charge just to turn around, cavalry surrendering to an already surrendered enemy unit, and a whole bunch of really strange behaviors during battles can cause the more casual gamer to give the game a pass. However, these are all problems that have been patched at breakneck speed. In fact, a few weeks after this review, most of these problems will probably have already been patched. The developer has done a fantastic job of cleaning up bugs and issues while still pushing out new content. Okay, so the end of the review, what is my overall review of Grand Tactician Civil War? Now, before I give you my numbers, I need to make one thing clear. I'm going to give you two scores. I'm going to give you its score as a standalone game for the casual, the person who maybe hasn't played other Civil War games, and I'm going to give you its score as a Civil War specific game for someone who loves the Civil War. Okay, ready? Forgive me if you don't like these numbers, especially if you're from the development team and maybe you think these numbers are underwhelming. So, Grand Tactician Civil War as a game for a casual who does not play Civil War games, I would give it a 7 out of 10. It's a good game. It's solid. At this stage, it still needs some work, but even at its full release, at its full edited mode, I would say maybe it'll bump up to 8. It's just not going to appeal to the kind of audience that larger games like the Total War games, for instance, would appeal. And that's a good thing. I don't want it to appeal to that huge audience. I want that niche game that is made with obvious love from the development team. So, my personal score for this game, and I'm scoring it based on the upcoming patches in the next 2 weeks and my current experience. My current score for it is a 9 out of 10. I think this is a fantastic Civil War strategy game. There are so few out there right now. There's one every 4 or 5 years, so they're not exactly frequent. And when they do come out, there's a very large group of people who are obsessed with these kind of games and are very excited for these games to come out, but they also have very high standards and high expectations. This game has almost everything I was looking for in a grand Civil War game. It's got the map, it's got the choke points, the strategic strategic supply situation. This is something that even Hearts of Iron, a game that's massive in development scale and is from one of the most beloved publishers and developers out there, Paradox Games, that game doesn't even have proper supply compared to this game. They're only just now putting in things like supply depots and stuff in the upcoming major release. But this game came right out the gate with it. There are supply choke points, there's supply depots. You have to be near a big city if you want to bring in that extra supply. There are roads. There's just everything that a strategist loves. And the battle map, while it's still rough around the edges compared to the main map, is definitely coming along, and I'm really excited to see what is coming in the next couple weeks. So if you're a Civil War lover, I highly recommend this game. 9 out of 10. Please get it. Help support the developer. This is a small indie developer here, and he deserves all of our money if we can give it to him. He definitely deserves our support, because there's a bunch of AAA games out there with developers that don't give a care at all in the world about their players, whereas this one listens to his players, makes changes that actually matter, and is constantly patching his game. If you're a casual, I still give this game a 7 out of 10. If you're interested in stepping into the Civil War as a genre, then this might be a good first step, although it's going to be a little bit difficult for folks like you. Okay, that is it for the review. This is XB Walker, and I hope that you decide to give Grand Tactician Civil War a look. I think it is definitely worth the price. So until next time, gentlemen and ladies, this is XB Walker. Thank you so much for watching.